Amari, and I am here with Reverend Michael Amari, who is managing all the technical details of today's service, and he is also serving us with a meditation and today's reading. Northern Light Spiritual Center is a community of people dedicated to using spiritual and practical principles to create lives we want to live. Northern Light Spiritual Center offers practical and spiritual tools to make positive changes in our lives. We acknowledge our presence here on the traditional and unceded lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and coastal Salish peoples. These people are still here, and we join with them in how they continue to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. We seek to resist the erasure of Indigenous histories as we work towards honoring and inviting the truth. Please join me for our opening song, In This Very Room, by Ron and Carol Harris. In this very room, there's quite enough love for all the world. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all the world. And there's quite enough peace and quite enough power to walk through our every fear. For Spirit, sweet Spirit, is in this very room. In this very room.
And now is the time we set aside for a brief meditation. And today's meditation, as you can see on the screen, is a chant. I invite us to just get comfortable as we can wherever we are, whether we're on a chair, whether we're lying in bed, whether we're somewhere in between. Just allow yourself to be calm and releasing all that has come before this moment. Because at this moment you don't need it. It's not necessary. And so, I think we'll take a nice couple of deep breaths, brief cleansing breaths. So let's breathe in. And release. Another brief deep breath in. And release. And one more nice deep breath in. And release. And as we are being calm, centered, and still, I just would like us to, you could do this silently or out loud, wherever you're at, to take it in as you speak it and make it yours. Claim it. God is, I am, we are one. God is, I am, we are one. And you can use gestures like God is, I am, we are one. God is, I am, we are one. Just contemplate that for a few moments. And silently repeat it to yourself. If you're alone, you can verbalize it. God is, I am, we are one. One more time. God is, I am, we are one. So I invite you this week to practice this, knowing that we are one with all that is. And so when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes, wiggle your fingers, your toes, whatever, and come back to the room. And so it is. Now for the reading. Today's reading is from Luke 11, verses 1 through 13, the New International Version. And it's called Jesus Teaching on Prayer. One day, Jesus was praying in a certain place. When he finished, one of his disciples said to him, "Lord, teach us to pray, just as John taught his disciples. He said to them, when you pray, say, Father, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come. Give us each day our daily bread. Forgive our sins, for we also forgive everyone who sins against us. And lead us not into temptation. Then Jesus said to them, suppose you have a friend, and you go to him at midnight and say, Friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread. A friend of mine on a journey has come to me, and I have no food to offer him. And suppose the one inside answers, Don't bother me. The door is already locked, and my children are in bed. I can't get up and give you anything. I tell you, even though he will not get up and give you the bread because of friendship, yet because of your shameless audacity, he will surely get up and give you as much as you need. So I say to you, ask and it will be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be open. Which of your fathers, if your son asks for a fish, will give him a snake instead? Or, if he asks for an egg, will give him a scorpion? If you then, though are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give the Holy Spirit to those who ask him? And so it is.
You have me. So we have 2 more weeks of this month's chant, which goes, I'm grateful for what brought me here. I'm grateful for all I achieve. I'm grateful for what taught me here. I'm grateful for what I received. I give thanks for the view from here. I give thanks for the truth right here. I give thanks for what's new and clear. I give thanks for the truth right here. I'm grateful for what brought me here. I'm grateful for all I achieve. I'm grateful for what taught me here. I'm grateful for what I received. I give thanks for the view from here. I give thanks for the truth right here. I give thanks for what's new and clear. I give thanks for the truth right here. Now it's you. You're grateful for what brought you here. You're grateful for all you achieve. You're grateful for what taught you here. You're grateful for what you receive. You give thanks for the view from here. You give thanks for the truth right here. You give thanks for what's new and clear. You give thanks for the truth right here. Now we're grateful for what brought us here. We're grateful for all we achieve. We're grateful for what taught us here. We give thanks for the truth right here. We give thanks for what's new and clear. We give thanks for the truth right here. Now back to I and really own it this time. I'm grateful for what brought me here. I'm grateful for all I achieved. I'm grateful for what taught me here. I'm grateful for what I received. I give thanks for the view from here. I give thanks for the truth right here. I give thanks for what's new and clear. I give thanks for the truth right here. Now the pre-talk song is from Linda Webb Kakaba.
Screen.
Yes.
And
Share sound. So I've heard a lot of Linda Webb Kakava songs, but when I was looking for the one I was actually thinking of for today, that's the one that came up. And I have to say, I love how the divine mind, I love how creation is always constantly acting and always constantly receptive to us. However, we may not be aware of that, and today's talk, called Thanksgiving, is a way to give us some reminders about that. Now, Thanksgiving is what's going to happen on Thursday. A lot of us think we know the story of Thanksgiving. These persecuted people who were from England were no longer allowed to practice their faith, and so they traveled to Holland and they stayed in Holland. And then they got all scared because their children weren't learning English and they weren't being very English, and so they felt like they had to do something else, so they went to the New World. And when they arrived in the New World, this God-fearing, God-loving group of people were just embraced by the natives who took them under their wing and cared for them, and that was it. And Thanksgiving was the joyous reunion of the native people with these travelers who had come so far. I want to pause here and be really clear that this story is so conscientious about making those white English folk so good. They're the victims, first of all, from having to flee their land, boo-hoo-hoo. And then they're the victims because they flee a land and their children aren't learning what they think they should learn. They're no longer being as English as they think they should be. So they're going to go to a new land where they can be more English. Except when they get to the new land, they're going to take it all over and they're going to make everybody be English. One of the details in that story is that's very, I don't remember ever hearing it when I was a little kid taught. The people who took them in, they arrived in 1621, and by 1623, most of the native population, most of the indigenous people had been wiped out by sickness. And the ones who remained, many of them ended up being captured, and the men were sent to Haiti to serve as slaves. And the women and children were turned into slaves by those lovely English people. What I'm saying is very much akin to something that has become a buzzword in our world, the notion of critical race theory, and how critical race theory just is about making white people feel bad. You know, people even changed it and they turned it up to critical racist theory. And the problem is that so few white people are willing to acknowledge our racism. And I remember some years ago, there was a show called Avenue Q, and there's a great song, Everyone's a Little Bit Racist. The problem with the song, the notion of everyone's a little bit racist, is that it presumes that everyone has power and that everyone has privilege. And this week we saw a very different story. We saw a boy who could go cross state lines with an illegal gun. He could go to protesters who were protesting the shooting of a black man, a black boy, and he could claim self-defense when people were coming after him with his gun, and he could shoot them, and he could kill two, and he could injure one, and he could be innocent. And a judge can direct the attorneys to be really clear about referring to the people who were shot as looters, as terrorists. And never use the word victim. And I put this, and I juxtapose this, and I contrast this with the story of the 3 white people in Georgia who went after Ahmaud Arbery and shot him, and it's also being called self-defense. Now, we all know the story that if this was a white boy, or if this was a black boy, or if this were a black girl, the details would be presented in a very different way. There are 3 congressmen who are fighting over the opportunity to have Kyle Rittenhouse be working for them. Isn't that sweet? That they want to have this poster child for vigilantism working in their office. Now, why do I bring all of this up with Thanksgiving? I bring it up with Thanksgiving because we are so often about pushing the white story. We're so often about pushing a particular way of seeing things. And I want us to pause for a moment and embrace it in a different way. I want us to take pause and recognize that indigenous peoples have long given thanks. They've long taken this season as a time to reflect on the abundance of nature. That because of the way that they saw themselves as stewards, interacting with the world, interacting with the land, that they designated a season to be giving thanks. And we seldom take the opportunity to deliberately acknowledge this other cultural perspective about giving thanks. That it wasn't invented by a group of white people from England who were very lucky. And because they were so lovely, indigenous people thought, well, let's just be nice to them. With Thanksgiving, we can lean into other traditions. With Thanksgiving, we can take a moment and deliberately bring forward a thankful heart. In Linda Webb Kakaba's song, Living Spirit, Living God, I am grateful. What is it to acknowledge that there is a life, that there is a life all around us, and all we can do is we might just give pause to be grateful. What happens to us when we pause into gratitude? Linda Webb Kakaba also calls us that I'm grateful for the abundance on my table. I'm grateful that I am free. We are free to be able to choose what we pay attention to. I brought attention to the injustice that exists in our society. Not to have anybody feel bad, but to say that even in the midst of things that feel difficult, that we are free to choose how to respond. We can look at the difficulty as justification for being whiny. We can look at the difficulty as our excuse to say, oh, it's just more of the same thing. Or we can use it as a way to say, what am I called to do? How am I called to be that might be different? In the face of injustice, am I just going to sit by, or am I going to call it out? And if I call it out, am I going to engage in a way that evokes more love in the world? am I going to choose to engage in the world in a way that is more loving? Now, to consider this, I'm actually going to share a secret, and maybe some of you know it. One of my favorite movies is Pollyanna. And I'm calling it a secret because Pollyanna, many of you may have heard the term, she's just being very Pollyanna about this whole thing. When they use that term, being Pollyanna is not a compliment. It's not like, oh, good for you, you're being very Pollyanna. The term you're being Pollyanna is a put down. It's saying you're overly and unduly optimistic about circumstances. You're not seeing the real world. You've got blinders on. But I'm sharing this secret about my value of the story of Pollyanna because for me, Pollyanna shares some profound truths. During the movie, there's a group of people that are sitting around talking about how miserable Sunday is. They hate Sunday more than any other day of the week because the minister is all fire and brimstone. And they comment about the fact that they had a really lovely breakfast, but their breakfast is like unsettled in their stomach because the minister is just preaching, and I would say that biatching, about how everybody is going to go to HE double hockey socks. And Pollyanna proposes the idea of playing the glad game. And they're like, what's that? Well, the glad game is you can find something to be glad about. And they said, well, what can we be glad about with Sunday? And it does stump her for a couple of moments. But eventually she comes around and she said, there's 6 whole days before we have Sunday again. Later on during the film, Pollyanna has cultivated an unlikely friendship. She's cultivated a friendship with the old woman in the town who is the least liked of all possible people. And everybody in the town is just waiting for this old woman to kick the bucket. So in the scene, Pollyanna arrives with a stack of fabric. And the woman's like, why are you bringing me that dirty stuff? And she's like, it isn't dirty. It's pieces of fabric, and people are going to make quilts to sell for the festival. And the old woman is like, that's never going to work. Nobody's going to ever buy these things. This festival's going to fail. Now, she's not very Pollyanna-ish in her orientation. In fact, she's a little irritated because she's been interrupted. She's there with the undertaker who is helping her select her coffin. Yes, the brass fittings on the coffin are going to be beautiful, and we'll put this white satin inside, and that will be beautiful. And Pollyanna interrupts, and she says, why are you spending all this time worrying about dying? You're still alive. And the undertaker, he's none too fond of that, because he's working on making a good sale. And once again, Pollyanna brings to the forefront the notion of the glad game. And the woman this time asks, where did the glad game come from? And Pollyanna describes that it was something that her father came up with. And she describes the detail about when it happened. Because Pollyanna, when her mother and father were alive, her parents were missionaries. And they had no money because they spent all of their money on their church. They spent all of their money on these good acts. And Pollyanna really wanted a doll. And her dad said, we just don't have money for a doll. So he wrote away to the mission that sent them. And instead of a doll, what comes in the package are crutches. There's some foreshadowing here, if any of you know about the movie of Pollyanna. There are crutches. And Pollyanna is a little disappointed, and she says, needless to say, I was a little bit disappointed. I thought it would be a doll and it's a pair of crutches. Who out there would love to have a pair of crutches instead of some other thing that we wanted? How many times do we feel like, oh, look what we got, it's not what I wanted? I don't mean to be projecting on you. Maybe all of you are continually happy about what you receive and about what you hear. I am not. And that's why, again, I hold Pollyanna as a inner heroine, as somebody that I might follow and pursue. What she describes is that her dad says, if we play the glad game, we can be glad that we're not needing the crutches. We can be glad that if crutches are needed, we have them. But we don't need them now. So you might have guessed, and I'm stealing from our practitioner who always establishes life work for us to do. My life work for us is to play that glad game. As things come up, how can we find where to be glad in the midst of what we're focusing on? You've all heard me talk about my great not success with skiing. My first 40 minutes out on the ski slope was spent with my face in the snow. I was so anxious about falling that I couldn't look anywhere but where my feet were. And as you may know, when you look at where, you ski where it is you're looking. It's like you drive where you're looking. You walk where you're looking. You run where you're looking. And if you aren't watching where you're running, you can bang into something. You could fall down. If we can apply that to the glad game and be looking where we're running, to be looking where we're going, to be looking where we're skiing, if we're diverting our attention from what is pissing us off, if we divert our attention to what is troubling us and turn it instead to what it is we want to see, there's a power in that. In the science of mind teaching, one of our practices is called spiritual mind treatment. And it's a particular way of conducting and engaging in prayer. Michael set us up for that, as you might have guessed, with our meditation. That prayer starts with turning our attention to that which is greater than us. Sometimes some people can be comfortable calling it God. If God is a word that can be a trigger, and it can be for some people because God has been oversold by the white patriarchy in this notion that God is some big old white guy up in the sky with a big long beard who is picking out who's going to get rewarded and who's going to get punished. In the book The Shack, God is a black woman, which was very disturbing for some people, the notion that God is a black woman. And the Holy Spirit had the form of a woman from India. The whole notion was turning that white patriarchy image of God on its head. So you don't want to call it God. Call upon what it is that is huge and inspiring and more immense than our mind can grapple. In one of the songs by Linda Webb Kakaba, God is light, I am light. God is love, I am love. God is truth, I am truth. So what is it what captures the notion of something that is so big that to name it is to begin to approach it and begin to touch it? in that prayer, what we do is we turn our attention to that which is so much bigger than any problem that we're dwelling on. So that first step is to call our attention to that which is bigger. And then the second step, like Michael talked about in the meditation, is to recognize that that which is so great is including and embodying us. It's including and embodying me. Light, which illuminates all of the universe, which sets into motion all that is, glorifies all that is. Light is. And I, Vaughn, am one with that light. Each one of us can acknowledge and can claim our oneness with that single source. If we call it light, if we call it beauty, if we call it truth, if we call it joy, if we call it love, if we call it peace. The second step in that spiritual mind treatment, which the science of mind teaches and proposes as a technology for prayer. Light is, I am one with that light. I am the means through which light shows up. And then we speak into being our declaration. One of the things about that list for me, for listening to Linda Webb Kakava, is that the piano, there's a vibration that happens with a piano. There's a vibration that happens when the strings in a guitar move. Music makes a vibration. And it's a vibration that fills our whole being. And I want to say that prayer, I want to say that speaking our words establishes a vibration. Science has boldly discovered a whole realm of reality called the quantum realm. It's that which is in potentiality, that which is possible, being able to move from possibility into reality. Can we let ourselves open to the prospect of our greatest possibilities becoming a reality? That's that third step. It is naming it as if it is already done. It's like when you go into a store and you want to try something on, and you try it on. You don't just go to the store and say, I think I'm going to want that, because then you get it home and you're like, oh, that doesn't work. Have any of you ever done that? You see it at the store and you think, I like that, and you try it on at home because you don't want to try it on at the store, and you're like, oh, I don't like this. This does not make me look good the way I thought it would make me look good. In spiritual mind treatment, you are trying it on and you are feeling it and you are letting yourself see how it fits. And you're looking in the mirror and you're saying, this looks good. And then we come to the next step, and it's completely connected with today's talk. That we give thanks, that we pause and we put it on and we're trying it on and we feel grateful. Now, as people may know, there are several television channels which have now they are 24/7 Christmas movies. And some of this started back in October. There are channels that are now doing Christmas movies in the middle of the summer because, Christmas is we want it, and then we're starting it again in October, and then we start it again in November. It can be Christmas 24/7, which is not particularly thoughtful or recognizing that there are a whole bunch of holidays that get celebrated in this season. Again, this is a bunch of white people who are really scared, and they just love to push the notion of Christmas. And they love the notion of imagining Mary not a young Jewish girl, but as this white, middle-class woman, and Joseph as some white, middle-class dude. And the story doesn't reflect that at all. That's not what the story ever was. Newsflash, Jesus was Jewish. Jesus' original followers were Jewish. You wouldn't know that from many Christians. But in the midst of all of this, we caught How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And there's a moment after the Grinch cleans out Whoville, and he's just waiting. He's waiting at the top of the mountain with just eagerness because he wants to hear all the boo-hoos from all the Whos. But what happens instead is that they all gather and they celebrate. They gather with a place of great thanksgiving. Because the thing that they're really grateful for is their community. The thing that they're really grateful for is their togetherness. The thing that they're really grateful for is that they have the chance to lift up their voices and sing and praise. And in the cartoon version, their coming together generates this light. And I would say that that's really symbolic, that notion of coming together, not celebrating the fact that they're gahoozles and wafoozles and watoozles, all of the things that are stowed away in the trappings that the Grinch has stolen. And this realization, this hearing this, expands the Grinch's heart, which had previously been too small, and it makes it 3 sizes larger than normal. We can stop in the same way, and we can make our own hearts 3 sizes larger than normal. Who wants a normal-sized heart? Does anybody here want a normal-sized heart? If it can be a heart that is just filled with gratitude, that is filled with love, that is filled with kindness. So the second homework assignment, the second life work assignment is not only to play the glad game, but to play the game of gratitude and the capacity to expand our heart. Can we be thankful for more than things? Can we be thankful for more than what we expected? Can we be thankful that we wake up and we get to be with people we love? We get to choose to love people. We get to choose to love pets. We get to choose to love. That's an option. The final part of the prayer is to simply release. How many of us just hang on? How many of us simply hang on? A metaphor that gets used is, how successfully do we imagine a seed would grow if we don't let it go into the place where we're planting it? Or similarly, how many of us have ever had the opportunity to plant a seed, but we just want to see if it's growing? You've heard the idea, watch pot never boils. A seed that you keep digging up never has a chance in that restful state to activate. So the last bit of homework is that notion of release. Can we just let go? This week, consider something that we can let go. And we're approaching my Catholic heritage. At the end of every November, we would start to do something called Advent. And Advent and Lent, for those who don't know, was an opportunity in my household to always give up something. And my dad was very clever because his idea was to give up things like, I'm going to give up watermelon. I am not going to eat any watermelon during Advent. And it was very easy for him to do because really watermelon was not something that was routinely around. What can we choose to give up? You know, as a kid, it was harder to give up things, and I didn't like the idea. I was already, when I was diagnosed with diabetes, I already had to have so many things that I gave up. You know, I wasn't supposed to eat things that other kids were able to eat. You know, I would go to a birthday party, and a birthday party was not like a fun time for me because I had to be really thoughtful about the fact that I couldn't eat the cake, couldn't eat the ice cream, couldn't eat the cookies or the candy or the things that were being done. I'd be really careful if we were active, you know, like we'd go to the roller rink, and if my blood sugar got too low, I would pass out. And passing out didn't make those birthday parties all that fun. So the added notion of having to give something up when I felt like I had already given up so much just to live. But I speak from this place that sometimes we are so preoccupied with what we give up that we're really not giving up much, because we are so carrying the weight of our sacrifices. Oh, I'm such a noble person because I make all of these sacrifices. You know, I told you my dirty little secret about loving Pollyanna. It's no longer a dirty secret now because it's expanded. There are a lot of people now who can flip on this thing back on YouTube, and there's like now evidence of my proclamation about how much I appreciate Pollyanna. It's no longer a secret. I'm giving up that secret. I've made it widely public. Because if people look up Pollyanna, there are algorithms that would show, I'm going to talk about Vaughn Amare is going to be connected with the notion of loving Pollyanna. So I've given up that secret. I've given up that notion that I will proudly be connected with the notion of undue optimism and undue cheer. Because I don't see it that way. Giving up, I remember some years later after the notion of, well, giving up a particular food for that time before Advent. Might we give up our impatience? What would it be like to just give up impatience? That when things happen and they're not happening the way they are, and we're just like, I can't, what if we were to say, I've given that up? I'm not going to let that annoy me.
Funny boy.
What might we give up? What might we select? And the practice might be that we don't find that we can do it. The practice might be that, oh, crumb, I didn't make it through today. I didn't make it through this hour. I didn't make it through these 2 minutes without impatience. But I was at least trying. I was setting my goal on that. That I'm going to release impatience. That I'm going to release my unforgiveness. That I want to hold on to this. That quality in myself that I'm just like sick of. And I can't seem to let go of it. Can I let go of my being sick of it? Can I let go of my judgment of myself about it? Can I let go of my restrictions on myself? Can I let go of my unforgiveness of myself? Go through and pick any. So again, I'm going to end with the 3 life work things that we're going to be doing this week. 1, we're going to play the glad game. 2, we are going to be thankful. And 3, we are going to give up something. Now you can make it easy. You can do like my dad did. You can give up watermelon. Or you can push yourself and say, I might try something a little different to give up. Just for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to give up my impatience of myself. I'm going to give up my intolerance of myself. I'm going to give up my judgment of myself. So this week, I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. And I'm going to close with a prayer. So I invite us to take a deep breath in. And then let it out. And with this breath in and breath out, because I'm going to invite you to keep breathing. Maintain that breath in and maintain that breath out. And with that breath in and with that breath out, I turn my attention to life, which is always giving of itself with limitless, boundless capacity. Because every beat of my heart, every beat of each heart that is out there, every breath in, every breath out, is a physical manifestation of this life that is operating with complete abandon. It is without limits, this life that is integrating through all of creation. There are stars sparkling in the sky. There are trees taking in carbon monoxide and releasing oxygen. There is life happening all around us. And I acknowledge that, and I celebrate that, and I breathe that in. And as I breathe that in, I know that I am one with that life, and that each person here is one with that life. And there is no line drawn between that life that is creating the whole universe and the life that is creating each individual. I am one with that life. Each one within listening distance of my voice is one with that life. That life is ever freely giving. That life is expressing without limitation. And as it expresses without limitation within me. And therefore I speak this word of declaration. During this week of Thanksgiving, there is living, there is life, which is so active, which is so powerful, which is so present. Everywhere I turn, I celebrate this life that is constantly expressing, that is constantly unfolding, that is constantly being and giving without limitation. I look to the bounty that will show up on my table, because I've been watching Michael get ready to shop. I've been watching him make plans for different dishes. I've been watching the texts go back and forth between him and my daughter Emily about making mashed potatoes and making sure that there is a lot of butter in those mashed potatoes. And I know that whether we are preparing a meal, or whether we are buying a meal, or whether a meal is going to be delivered. I know that Northern Lights is a place that is providing meals for families who would otherwise not have access to these meals. And I know that there are people here at Northern Lights who have contributed to that so that that can happen. And I know that there are families who are sharing bounty. And I pause and I just let my consciousness attend to those tables. And I let that fill my body. And I let myself feel gratitude. I turn my attention to gratitude for life that is. For life that is expressing itself and impressing itself. And I let myself pay attention to that feeling tone of gratitude. I let myself sing the words of I give thanks. Thank you. And finally, I release these words. I release them. I let my hands open. I let my heart open. And I lean into a process that is already in motion. Just like the Who's down in Whoville, the packages that they might have expected, instead of finding those, they found their open hearts. They found themselves hand in hand, heart in heart. So I release. And I say Amen, Ashe, and so release. And then Michael will share our announcements. Release the puppy. Release the puppy.
Yeah, puppies.
First, I had to release the puppy because we brought her today. Thank you, everyone, for the Pollyanna talk. I used to be real Pollyannish, I guess what you call Pollyannish. But I am somewhat today, but sometimes life happens and it taints my way of being, my reaction to things, and so it's a nice reminder to, I can be grateful. I don't have to use the crutches, I know I've had to use crutches in past in my life, but I don't like it. And I can be grateful for different things that are not happening. And I love the power of the gratitude. That gratitude expands the heart. And I truly believe that. I've experienced that because gratitude, when you practice gratitude, when I practice it, I have to say, truly practice it, I'm totally out of myself. I'm off that, I'm not on that pity pot, I'm not woe is me or any of that. I am experiencing something that is allowing me to be free. Gratitude allows me to be free. And so there's that. Thank you. And so this Friday we will have a movie here after Thanksgiving. It's our tradition that we have. We're going to have actually 3 this year. One this Friday, and then the following 2 Fridays. And this one, seeing I really don't get any feedback on what they want to watch, so I choose. So there can be no complaints. So this one, the one I choose for this Friday is The Last Holiday with Queen Latifah, which is, I love it because it's funny, it's emotional, and it's got all the feelings that are involved in this time of year. And also this Wednesday, I will be delivering meals for 4 families that we at Northern Lights are gifting. We've been doing that for at least 10 years, and it's something we can do as a community to, give to others. And let's see, what else? And I just want to thank everyone that's been part of Northern Lights, whether here or far, in the present, the past, or future. Because you are what make us the community. And so I give thanks for that. And if anyone cares to contribute, you can just go to our website, which is northernlightspiritualcenter.com, and hit the donate button. And so with that, I give thanks for each heart, each expanded heart, each small heart, each extra large heart. And I give thanks for each of you as part of Northern Lights Spiritual Center. And so with that, I release it and wish each and every one of you a happy and blessed Thanksgiving. And so it is.